I'm officially entering my Yale tuber era. I know that all of my friends are going to clown me endlessly for this. Am I ashamed? No. Because when has shame ever stopped me in the past from doing something? Hi, my name is Stephan, I use he, him pronouns, and I am actually a transfer student from a California community college attending Yale! Yay! I am part of the class of 2024, and I am majoring in psychology. I am doing the Bachelor of Science track. I don't know if any of y'all can see like my background. I think I'm covering like the bulk of the mess here, but there is a bit of a mess in my bedroom because I am storing some people's stuff because I live in an off-campus apartment in New Haven. So my apartment has become a informal storage unit. So basically today what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna answer some questions that I compiled from folks who are asking questions about Yale. That's kind of the point of a Q&A video, innit? Okay, the first question. How many semesters did you spend at the community college before transferring? I spent 1 year at my community college, so that was about 2 semesters. My community college was a little bit different because we had 3 semesters. So we had a fall semester, a spring semester, and then this 5-week winter semester. Most people did not do the winter semester, so it was just the fall and spring. So I decided to transfer after only 1 year of community college because I had racked up a ton of AP tests from my high school when I was still in high school, so it was possible that I could have graduated a year early at whichever institution I attended. Like literally, if I had continued at my community college, I would be able to get my associates after taking only 3 more classes in the fall. I would be done. So that's where I stood with my community college. So after my first year, I decided to apply for transfer. I applied to a few schools, didn't get into any of them, except Yale, so I ended up at Yale. All right. How limited are your transfer options? This person mentioned being at a California community college for 2 years before transferring, and they thought that they'd be really limited to UCs. So that's sort of the thing about California community colleges. They really gear you towards go to a Cal State, go to a UC, and those are amazing options. Your first 2 years of community college in California are free, so it's a really good gig. And there are a lot of really good financial aid options at a lot of these public universities. And California itself funds a lot of college opportunities. Something about California community colleges is that they prepare you for what's known as I Get C requirements. These are your basic requirements for any California college, and they basically act as general education requirements, and they're very fluent. Basically, when you apply to any other school in the country, you're likely to be meeting their general education requirements, and as long as you're following the I Get C requirements, you'll likely fall into place for a lot of other colleges' general requirements. So your options are not limited. Although my only critique of California colleges, like California community colleges, is that they kind of only really know how to help you if you're going to a UC or a Cal State. You do have to do a little bit more digging on your own to figure out how to undergo the transfer process if you're going to a college out of state or even internationally, because oftentimes your counselors might not have the resources to be able to appropriately guide you, and you'll have to do a lot more intensive one-on-one work to be able to get the proper forms in. Next question. People have wanted me to speak to elitism and privilege within transfer student bodies and how transfer identity is not a monolith. That is very important because I think that the experience of being a transfer student from a community college and then a transfer student from a 4-year are drastically different experiences. People from community colleges are often coming from a more marginalized demographic. We're often more likely to be people of color, low income. Oftentimes with, at least at Yale, the experience that I've seen with the transfer student body, particularly the 4-year transfer student body, is that they are overwhelmingly athletes and overwhelmingly other top 50 universities. So they'll be coming from colleges like Dartmouth, Oberlin, very big name brand schools. So I think that the transfer experience can be very variable depending on which college that you are coming from. Next question, am I happy here? That's a complicated one. I think that there's a lot about Yale that has been really frustrating in my time here that I've struggled to sort of cope with and address. But at the same time, I know that I'm a lot happier being on the East Coast. I know that I'm a lot happier than I was when I was in my hometown. And I'm definitely really grateful to be here because I'm on the East Coast. Plus, Yale is like the school that I got into. I was accepted into like one other college for transfer, but I was not going to be able to afford it. They basically billed me for, it would be $300,000 for the 3 years that I would spend there, which was ridiculous. My family was definitely not going to be able to afford that, so I treat that as if it was a rejection, because I appealed it and they refused to alter my financial aid package. Basically, the reason why my financial aid package was the way that it was, they did not disclose to me why, but then when I was accepted into Yale, they actually called me personally and said like, hey, I think that you guys accidentally put decimals instead of like a whole number. Basically, for like the amount that we were making a year, we had put something like ridiculously high. So it was like, oh, no wonder you would not be offered aid for that. That is an insanely high income. So we kind of like messed up there because we put cents instead of just like a whole number. Jiminy crickets, that's bright. Okay, I'm adjusted from being blind now. Now you can properly see me. Okay, but I guess like also on the topic of like being happy here, I definitely feel as if in a lot of ways I was sort of like meant to be here. Like, I think that the route that I took was definitely the best route for me. I don't regret going to community college. I really appreciate my experience at community college. And if my hometown wasn't a place that I was really miserable at, I probably would have gone on to do another semester at community college and transferred afterwards. But the thing is that I just had to move away from my hometown. It was somewhere that I was really not happy. And being on the East Coast, I have been a lot happier. I know that I do have a lot of like low moments, and I think that Yale as an institution infuriates me in a lot of ways. But I think that ultimately I am at the happiest point that I've ever been in my life, and I'm really grateful to be on the East Coast and to be in New Haven. Because like, I guess the best way that I could like say it is that I'm happy in New Haven. Not necessarily I'm happy at Yale, because Yale itself as an institution is incredibly infuriating, and I don't think that the people that I've met here are necessarily a result of the institution. I think that the institution plays a role in like having brought me to these people, but at the same time it's like I feel as though the friendships that I've created aren't necessarily because of Yale. I have found community within New Haven and within Yale, but it is not Yale that is responsible for my happiness. So I hope that that makes sense. I feel like that might not make sense. I don't know. I tried. Okay, next topic to discuss. Deconstructing the idea that college apps are meritocracies. Ivy Leagues are not always the goal, and we did not just do the right things to get here. This is so true! I personally, in high school, I had a 4.3 GPA. I got a 31 on the ACT. I was doing a ton of LGBT plus rights activism, specifically fixating on trans rights activism, because my high school, we learned that it was not complying with a lot of California legislation that intended to protect LGBT plus populations, and this was disproportionately impacting the trans community there. So I worked significantly with my school board as well as local organizations to combat some of these like systemic issues that were at play at my high school. I also had a part-time job, and I dedicated over 3,000 hours into our color guard program, which is an extension of the marching band. I did link crew. I had a full ride scholarship to this collegiate level arts program that covered the cost of materials, instruction, transportation, everything. There were a ton of like random other things that I did in high school as well. And then in community college, I had a 4.0 GPA. I took multiple honors classes. Even like throughout the pandemic, I was doing extracurricular activities. I participated on our student equity advisory committee. I participated in UC Irvine's honors research conference for community colleges. I presented a research paper there. I did like volunteering at our local LGBT plus center. Like basically I was a peer mentor for a group of high school, middle school students as like me being a college student. I worked at Bath and Body Works too, which was an experience in and of itself. It's kind of a blur. I feel like honestly all of pandemic life is such a blur for me. And despite me having done all these things, I didn't get into any of the schools that I applied for during my senior year of high school. I got waitlisted at UCLA, and waitlisted at Yale, did not get off of the waitlist to those schools. And it was also the pandemic, so I decided, like, you know what? I'll do community college. And like everyone that I knew was saying that like, yeah, no, we definitely should have done like community college, because a lot of people from my high school went directly into a four-year university, and they were like, yeah, no, we regret this. So that was really disappointing. I felt really frustrated because I'm a first-generation student. So a lot of the people at my high school were very white, very wealthy, and had these generational legacies at a lot of these large institutions, and there was this huge pressure to attend one of these like prestigious institutions. So when I found out that I didn't get in anywhere, it was definitely really frustrating. It was like, wow, I am not meeting the standard that a lot of my peers are meeting. And it felt like a huge blow, where it was like, oh, I've always been harassed and discriminated against within my community for the marginalized affinities that I hold. And this was sort of the way that I wanted to prove, like, no, I can be just as good as you guys. And to get rejected from everywhere and not be able to go directly into a four-year institution, especially with the stigma associated with community college, it was frustrating. I had done everything right. I had basically followed this formula to get into all of these colleges, and I just didn't get in, and it was frustrating. And I'd even like helped a ton of other students like write their essays, read over them, like guide them on how to fill out these applications, and all of them got into the schools that they wanted to get into. And then I, at the end of the day, did not. And it was like, what's different about me that everyone else I know got into these schools, but I didn't? I think my situation definitely reflects like, hey, college applications are very much like up in the air. It's random. It is random choice. And even like with my transfer like application, I didn't get into the colleges that I wanted to get into. I'd applied to Tufts, Wesleyan, Boston University again, Northeastern, Brandeis. Brandeis was a huge dream school for me. I was like, I'm not gonna get into Yale. I'm gonna reapply to Yale, whatever. I got waitlisted, I'll see what happens. But Brandeis is the school that I wanna get into. I had an interview for them. I was like so excited. I basically like, my application was so seamless. I was so proud of it. And I was also like so proud of my interview, and I was like, bro, I'm gonna be at Brandeis. I'm excited about Brandeis. And then I got rejected. So it's like, I think that it just goes to show that like college applications are literally up to random chance. There is no rhyme or reason for why you get into any institution, at least like from what I've understood. And I think it honestly is just up to random chance. I honestly like, I don't know. And then it's funny like getting rejected from all these other institutions and then getting accepted into Yale, which has like a less than 1% transfer acceptance rate. Like I was one of like 13 students to be accepted in 2021 for the 2021 to 2022 cohort. And then like all of these other schools that had like higher acceptance rates for transfer and had been rumored to be like, oh, these are easier schools for you to go to for transfer, like it's easier to get in as a transfer student, I got rejected from all of them. Honestly, I guess also on that note about like the discussion of like college applications being meritocracies, Ivy League schools and four-year institutions are not always the best option for you. Sometimes vocational school is honestly where you should go. Sometimes art school is where you should go. Sometimes just getting your associate's degree is what you should do. Sometimes just getting a certification course. Sometimes going to like cosmetology school is the best route for you. Not everyone has to go into academia, pre-med, pre-law, etc. to be able to have a good life and to be able to like, hey yo, I swear to God, I'm gonna throw a temper tantrum. My data basically got like all full, so it just cut off the video. Basically, what I was saying is that not everyone has to go to an Ivy League or 4-year to be able to have a happy, fulfilling life and make money and be comfortable. Basically, get the little elitism bug that is inside your silly little brain, pluck it out, and throw it away. Throw it away. Throw it away. Because like, honestly, like, I was like really worried that I was going to get into both Brandeis and Yale, and if I had, it would have been a really difficult decision to make, because I was like, Brandeis is where I want to be. Like, I would be able to graduate a year early and triple major, and the vibes were just like, plus it was in like Waltham, which is really close to Boston, and it was just like the perfect college town vibe. And like basically my heart loves Brandeis. Maybe I'll go there for grad school or something because I'm just a huge Brandeis and Waltham fan. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. And I'm at Yale instead, so bada bing, bada boom. I guess it is a little bit hypocritical for me to be talking about like, oh, getting into an Ivy isn't everything, because I am here, and I guess like it's easier for me to say like, oh, schools aren't like all that. Like, just go where you're going to get an education. A degree is a degree no matter where you go, because I'm at Yale. But the thing is that having that experience of having been at a community college, being at Yale, like, school is school no matter where you go. The classes that I had at community college are the same as the classes that I had at Yale, with like very minute differences that basically come down to the teaching style of the professor that is teaching it. So that's that. Alright, how did I choose what I want to major in? Basically this person says everyone tells them to just go and figure it out along the way, but that makes them really anxious because college is really expensive. Honestly, that is still what I am going to say, because like most colleges, like they do not allow you to pick something in your first 2 years. You have to declare your major in your junior year. And the thing is that like my story for like discovering what major I wanted to do is very extreme. I can share that in another video, but basically like I am not the blueprint. I am not the person that you should be referring to for like, how do you pick your major? Because mine was actually traumatizing and was like my go-to for like, okay, if I went through something that intense and I still want to do this, I think that that is significant. And essentially where I'm struggling is like, okay, where do I like identify, potentially like, do I want to double major? That is basically like the situation that I was in, where when I got to Yale, they were basically like, hey, you did a lot of your psych credits in your first year at community college. When you got here, like, you're basically done with the major. You can just like, you basically only have to do like 3 classes for it, and then your senior thesis, and then you're done. So I was like, okay, well, I have plenty of room to be able to double major. So I've been exploring in that regard. But honestly, I think that one book that we read in my sociology class is The Pathfinder. And that helps you define like a ton of characteristics about yourself that are like, okay, what would be the perfect job for yourself? And honestly, just like, since you are not in college yet, I would just recommend like trying a ton of things. And even in your first 2 years of college, try everything. Just like find a ton of things that even like spark the slightest amount of interest for you and just try it. Just do the thing. Just try a ton of things until you figure out what you're passionate about. Because the thing that you should be doing is the thing that you are passionate about. Because I promise you, like, whenever people are like, oh, this major is not profitable, they are lying. There are so many ways that you can apply your major, and especially for the humanities, people always like rag on the humanities for like, oh, that's unemployable. But the thing about the humanities and the social sciences is that the skills that you develop are not hard skills. The skills that you develop are soft skills. I think that they are just as difficult to develop as hard skills. But the thing is that they are more abstract, so it's easier to discredit those kinds of skills. Whereas if you're majoring in like biology or chemistry, it's very straightforward and to the point. You know chemistry. Whereas if you have an English major, your realm of expertise is more so going to be an analytical style of skill set. I think, honestly, just identifying what you enjoy is going to be the key thing for you to figure out with your major. In addition to that, identifying whether you want to do like research/academia or something more vocational is going to be a really important distinction for when you're picking a major. Because I know like being at Yale, their focus is getting you into grad school so you could do a PhD program, so you could continue to do like research essentially. So you got to figure out like, okay, do I want to like do this sort of like archival study, doing a lot more like brain work, like thinking, philosophizing, or do I want to go down a path that's going to be more applicable? Like, for example, with psychology, you could either do like research in psychology, or you could like go off and become a therapist. And I want to go down the applied side. So while I'm doing a lot of these like research style things at my college, at like Yale, I'm also understanding that like what I am passionate about and what I'm excited to do is more in the applicable side, like one-on-one mentoring, etc. That's my realm of shenanigans that I want to do. I don't know if that's helpful. I hope that's helpful. I don't know if y'all want to like hear the story of like how I picked like psych as a major for myself. Maybe that'll be a separate video because it's like a long story, but Okay, so next question is, I'm an upcoming senior and I have no idea what to do scholarship-wise, but everybody keeps telling me I have to get them or I can't go to college. Look at the CSS profile if you are applying to any private schools. The CSS profile is basically like way more in-depth like financial aid calculator, and what you can do is you could search up net price calculators for, I blanked for a second. Search up a net price calculator for the school that you're interested in, you put in your little financial details, and then they guess how much, like they estimate how much you are supposed to be like given in aid when you attend that institution. So that's the thing. Do I think it's easier to get into college when you do community college first? I cannot say that. I am not an admissions officer. I do not know. I honestly do not know. I can say, however, that my cohort was like halfsies. Like we had like half community college transfers, half four-year transfers. I know with Yale, they do look really favorably upon community college transfers. And for four-year university students, they're definitely looking for folks that seem to be coming from these like top-tier institutions, like names that are easily recognizable, as well as athletes. However, I think for like any other school, like it's 50-50. I don't know. But basically, like, what I think is that there are a lot of benefits to doing community college first. First of all, it's way less expensive. Second of all, I feel as if it forces you to address a lot of, like, notions of prestige that you might have, like, internalized from, like, high school, etc. Because, like, community college is a really good place to go. Like, community college, like, the resources there are very good because they address a vast array of different experiences. I am a huge community college fan. I loved my community college, like, love them. And also, like, I made amazing connections with my professors because they were all just, like, random people who were just like, yeah, I kind of just want to teach as well. They had, like, other things that they had done that they were, like, really cool and accomplished, and they were like, I think I just want to teach a little bit. I could teach a few classes. And they're just, like, these cool, random, like, folks who just, like, also want to teach. Like, it's a very cool environment. And you find your people in community college. And I think that if my community college had been in person, I definitely would have made, like, pretty good, like, relationships and friendships there. I guess, like, honestly, another thing that's, like, that I've noticed about community college that's, like, definitely served me well in comparison to, like, coming straight from a four-year university is that when you go to community college, oftentimes you have to commute to community college. Oftentimes you'll also be doing work, you might be doing, like, other responsibilities in addition to being a community college student. Not to say that that's not the same deal with, like, four-year university students. However, I think that with community colleges, you're likely to be exposed to a vast array of different experiences and different types of people and non-traditional students. So I think that me going to community college, it felt a lot less like my identity was as a student and more so that I am an adult also doing college. I am an adult going forward with, like, school. Like, I'm doing school while also being an adult. And I think that that's something that's been really valuable for me at, like, Yale, is that sometimes I interact with people and I'm like, wow, this feels like high school, the sequel for you. Whereas for me, like, I don't know, maybe part of it is also that I'm living, like, off campus and I just feel more so as if I am here to get my degree. I'm here to prepare myself for the future as a professional. It's nice having these social relationships and being friends with a lot of people, but at the same time, it's like, I'm an adult and these are friends that I've met through an activity that I do and through something that I do. It's not like those relationships are tied to, like, Yale is my identity. I am a Yale student. Like, I am ba-da-ba-da-ba-da, you know? Like, I don't know if that, like, makes sense. I think that I've, like, touched on that, like, previously as well. And I'm not sure if that's, like, communicating the way that I want it to. But basically, like, I just feel like I'm an adult doing school. Like, it's just, there's a sort of, like, distance there. And it's a lot, like, it's a lot nicer for me because I feel as if my experience with high school was so miserable, and I feel as if I were approaching college the same way that I approached high school, I would just, like, not have a good time. And maybe that is, like, a maturity thing. Maybe that is just, like, I don't know. I don't really know what I'm thinking. No thoughts, head empty. But yeah, that's those are some questions. I hope that that was interesting or helpful. I think, like, especially because I have, like, my own apartment and I have my own space, I do want to make a lot more, like, YouTube videos, and I do want to, like, discuss this entire experience of being a transfer student at Yale, because like when I was a kid, like I loved these kinds of videos. When I was like looking at colleges in high school, like I was obsessed with these videos. And honestly, like I think this is sort of a perspective that you don't hear often, and a lot of these videos are geared towards, here's how you make yourself appealable to these institutions, here's how you create and change yourself to get into these schools. And I hate that. I hate that so much. Like, honestly, I approached college applications with it where I was like, this is me. It's a privilege if you take me. I will enrich your campus. I will thrive wherever I go. That sounds like really like superiority complexy. I promise that that's like not how I intend it. But basically like just having that confidence and the ability that I have, and basically being like, look, I will make up your institution. Your institution will not define me and create me as a person. I hope that this was helpful. I don't know if any of y'all have like other questions. I would definitely be happy to answer them, and thanks for watching!